Welcome to Realizing Resilience, a podcast from the Connecticut Women's Consortium. We're not behavioral health professionals, but we're your gateway to real conversations with the experts. Each episode, we'll delve into the vast landscape of mental health, from personal stories to expert insights. Together, we'll bridge the gap between clinical expertise and personal experiences, connecting with diverse voices and perspectives. Join us for insightful conversations that demystify the world of mental health.
Attorney Michael Mackniak is a nationally recognized speaker, coach, trainer, and consultant who is a pioneer in promoting the importance of care coordination and developing efficient and effective methods for the delivery of needed resources to our most at-need populations. He has lectured and trained across the United States, demonstrating the effectiveness of proactive planning and avoiding costly and ineffective interventions in all settings. Michael is the COO of Guardian ad Litem Services, a nonprofit that improves the lives of people living with mental illness throughout Connecticut.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Realizing Resilience. I am Marisa.
I'm Alana.
And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Michael Mackniak here. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. We've got a great conversation we're going to have today, and I'm excited to get to it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm happy to be here. And hello there, Alana. Good to see you.
Thank you for including me. So if you wouldn't mind starting off by just telling us a little bit about what Guardian does and how the world of law and mental health sort of relate in terms of your work.
Yeah, sure. Guardian was actually put together as a concept by myself and Judge Jim Lawler and Dr. Ken Marcus. Judge Lawler was the probate court administrator, and Ken Marcus was the psychiatrist in charge of he was the medical director of the Department of Mental Health. So I came up with this idea, and I approached Judge Lawler with it, and he had already been speaking with Dr. Marcus, and we put together a big team of people, sort of an advisory committee, including our fair Colette Anderson from the Women's Consortium, to discuss ways that we can enhance the service system and think outside the box and have more efficient and effective delivery of services to the folks with mental illnesses who are conserved, who are trying to maintain life in the community, but seem to be going through the revolving door cycle, as we call it, of decompensation, hospitalization, arrest, homelessness, back into the streets, back into the system, and just going through this cycle over and over again. So what we created is a system whereby we have an independent monitoring and reporting entity that sort of, if you will, acts like a satellite hovering around an individual, and all of the participants that are working for them and with them to help to ensure that they do get meaningful and realistic treatment so that they can have a meaningful and fulfilled life. We have clients that have 2 providers that are involved with them. We have providers that have 30. We have clients that have 30 providers that are involved with them. So if you can imagine trying to get 30, 15, 12, 10, 2 different providers trying to talk to each other and trying to get on the same page with each other for the benefit and the proactive treatment of folks with severe and persistent mental illnesses, it's an uphill climb. It really is. It's a very difficult task. Guardian comes in, acts as that liaison. We act as that glue that Dr. Marcus calls us the air traffic controllers of the mental health system, to make sure that what the right hand knows what the left hand is doing. We monitor the treatment plans, and we monitor the commitment and the adherence to treatment plans of all of our clients. We report back to all of the providers in what we call care coordination. And we developed the term care coordination back in 2001, before care coordination became a part of our lexicon. That's what we do. And we've had a really good run with it. It's been going on 25 years now, and we've showed dramatic results, great success in keeping people in the community out of hospitals, out of jails, no homelessness, that kind of thing. Now, how does it relate to the law? In Connecticut, probate courts have exclusive jurisdiction over mental illness. Okay, so I'm a probate lawyer. I consider myself to be a probate lawyer. That's where the idea is. That's where I saw the need for this type of a program at the very beginning. But you also know that there's a lot of criminality. A lot of folks with mental illnesses are homeless. If you're homeless, you are something like 40% more likely to commit a crime than if you were not homeless. 20% of the population in our prisons has some form of mental health issue, right? So it's grossly overrepresented. When you have the criminal courts and you have the civil courts doing their thing, obviously there's a lack of communication there, right? There's a lack of understanding of what is available in any given system. I mean, even within a Department of Mental Health service system, even within a probate court service systems, we don't know what's available from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And the idea of our program is to take our knowledge of the entire systems and bring them from Waterbury to Bridgeport, from Bridgeport to Middletown, and Middletown out to Norwich, and say, hey, I know that we have good services here. We can coordinate them with that service up there. We could talk to this judge if he'll take this case over here and oversee that. We can get into the criminal courts and try to let the judges know that we have a plan in place to really wrap this fella up with good services and make sure that he's taken care of and is not likely to commit again, that kind of a thing. So we interact very much with all the service providers, and we interact very much with all aspects of the legal system, because unfortunately many of our clients are involved in that system, those systems. So that's a sort of a long-winded answer for you, but that's really how we came about and what we do every single day.
I wouldn't say it's long-winded at all. I think that it was perfectly winded. I think it
It's a
really
mighty wind.
really gives a great picture of even why you're named guardian, because it truly is. It's kind of like being
Yeah.
surrounded by guardian angels, basically.
Well, that's a confusing thing that's been a topic of some consternation over the years, because guardian ad litem you see a lot in children's cases, where someone will be appointed to come in and make decisions for a minor child, especially in divorce cases, right? Think about you got dad and mom who can't even agree on the color of the drapes, and they're supposed to be making informed decisions about their child for the best interest of the child. So a guardian ad litem will come in and act in the best interest for that child. Well, when I was putting together the corporation for the program, I said, we are setting out to do what a guardian ad litem for a person with mental illness should do. We're here to help the system to act in the best interest of folks with mental illnesses, people who are trying to maintain meaningful life in the community. And by the way, I should also add their family as well, and all the people that love them.
Yeah, I was going to say, for Trauma Matters, for our newsletter, we recently did an interview with the executive director of the Connecticut Children's Alliance. And the process sounds similar to what they do with multidisciplinary teams, which for them is kind of an effort to avoid re-traumatizing a victim who needs to be interviewed and also needs these resources so that people are communicating. And I think it's wonderful that that's kind of transcending industries, because it seems like it's just such a simple solution to a communication problem.
It is. And I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? Communication. And the sad thing is that if we just follow the somewhat commonsensical approaches that we all kind of know in our hearts and in our stomachs, what's the right thing to do? Hey, I'll be the first to tell you, I wouldn't have a job if the systems all worked, right? And, but you're right. It is nice that we are coming to the table and willing to be open about it and say, hey, I would love to have somebody holding all of us accountable. Sign me up, put me on that team, put me on that list of people who need to, I need a little kick in the butt every once in a while.
And you said you've been doing this for 25 years, you said, with Guardian?
The concept I had in 1999, 2000, and we started rolling it out and having the discussions in our advisory group in 2001, September of 2001.
Wow.
Now we're in going into 2024. So yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. And in that time, do you feel like, how have you seen the system change, or even your role within that change?
When we first started this program, and I would talk about what we did, and I would go on my long-winded or perfectly winded diatribe, as you just told it, or even tried to give the old elevator speech, people looked at me like I had 10 heads. They had no idea what I was talking about. They had no conceptualization of how this can fit into the mental health system. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, it's both two sides of the same coin. People know about mental health. They know about mental illness. We're talking about it more. People are understanding the issues that face people and systems that are trying to address mental health issues. I'm not saying that it's getting done. I'm saying that people are at least aware of it. People know about it. It's part of something we could talk about. The concepts that I'm discussing are not completely over people's heads anymore. People are lock solid. Immediately, Alana came up with an analogy to another program, right? That was not done 20 something years ago. People just didn't get it. I've been told that concepts, frankly, were ahead of their time back then. And I guess that's a compliment in some ways, but it's also, like, damn, well, I don't want to wait on this. We've got to get this going. So, yeah. So that's really the big thing I see is people's understanding and willingness to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And thinking you've been working so long in this, what do you think is the most pressing issue surrounding mental health and care coordination in Connecticut right now?
I think I think you've already talked on it. I think you've already touched on it. I mean, communication.
Yeah.
The ability to communicate and we could talk about beds. Listen, beds are a major issue in Connecticut. They're a major issue in most places, but they're a big issue in Connecticut. Just having a bed, a place for a person to go if they need it, if they have a good program to get into, or if they need, God forbid, emergency care, having a bed, right? That's a big issue. But communication and this ability to talk and communicate, share ideas, and to bring people to the table, again, it's something that's gotten way better. It's something that, especially with Zoom and with video conferencing, we're able to have great meetings in this format, which allows for a lot better, I think, a lot better communication because people are more readily available. We don't have to drive an hour to go to a meeting and that takes up half of your day. Certainly being open and honest about the limitations of the resources that you have and your ability to get things done is a big thing. And that goes to communication, the willingness to talk, bringing people to the table from different disciplines and having them understand that I impact Marisa, I impact Alana impacts me, and therefore it impacts Marisa. That's really important. That's really important. And it kind of leads nicely into the presentation that I'm giving at the Women's Consortium in the springtime around HIPAA and the issues that we all see with HIPAA, because HIPAA has really, for the longest time, was really a barrier. It created a major barrier to communication, which it never was designed to do, never should do, it never should have done. But that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Getting past those silly perceived ideas of the complications around communication.
How do people get referred? Is it people typically seeking you out? Is it through the judicial system? Like, how do you get
We've developed quite the name for ourselves, not only in Connecticut, but nationally. And I have a national presence through a lot of the work that I've done trying to work with families. So people can be referred to our programs through the probate courts. They can be referred to our programs through the Department of Mental Health, or they hear about our programs through whoever, and they'll call us up and say, hey, I think I could really use you. How can I work with you? Our state-funded programs, in order to get into our state-funded programs, you have to be a Department of Mental Health client and you have to be conserved. We have another program we call conservative care that acts doing basically the same thing that our state-funded program called Melissa's Project does, but we step it up a notch where we get more into sort of case management roles to the extent we have to. And that's a fee for service program. So people can come to us and pay us to do what we do and pay for our expertise. And the reason we developed that is because, as you know, in our systems, you have people who don't have money, right, that are, indigents or whatever. And if they can get into the Department of Mental Health, there's a lot of services there for them. It opens up a lot of doors. Getting in can be a problem, but once they're in, it opens up a lot of doors. Then you have people who have money, they have insurance, and they can get services, but there's just not that many of them. And then you have the rest of us, everybody else in between. So we wanted to have something that we can offer to folks in between, and these families who are coming to us with, these horror stories about trying to maintain life for themselves, life for their loved ones, life for the other members of the family, the other siblings in the house. And we try to work with them as best we can. So there's a lot of ways to get to us. You can get to our website at guardian-ct.org, and we're always picking up the phone and talking to people and trying to at least point them in the right direction to resources that they may not know about, that are floating around out there,
The family is so overlooked. The burden that can place upon family members and the necessity for self-care there. What kind of resources are available to other support systems?
Not enough, right? It makes me really sad. It makes me really angry. I've been working probably the last 5 years of my career. I've really changed my focus to trying to reach families, trying to reach out to families, telling them that there is hope, trying to give them tools. I could actually call them my tools of hope, that there are tools, there are resources that are available to you. But you just said it, Alana, you have to have some self-care. You have to engage in self-care in order to be any good for your son, daughter, father, mother who has a mental health issue. You need to be sound and you need to be there in order to help them to help themselves. But yeah, the family resources, there's not a lot of them. And, I really hate when we talk about family resources and it becomes a group talk. And basically what that turns into, excuse my language, but it turns into a bitch fest where we sit around and we blame this guy, we blame that guy, we complain about this, we complain about that. We know there's problems. We know that there's problems. We know that there's shortcomings. We know that people with mental health issues are difficult to deal with sometimes. But complaining about it's not getting us anywhere. We got to dig in, you got to get educated, and you got to learn what you can do to help yourself, help them, etc. And it's tragic. It's just tragic, man. If you think about the ripples in the pond, about how one person with mental health issues impacts so many people, you drop that pebble into the pond, and this layers and layers and layers, it absolutely impacts every single one of us. I mean, if they're saying that 1 in 4 people has some form of mental illness or mental health issue right now, I mean, every single one of you either has something that we are addressing, and we just have to include. And I don't know who said it, if it was Marissa or Alana, one of you guys said, the impact on these families and supporting the families. They are living in the trenches. They are doing the yeoman's work of holding this together, holding this family together as best they can. And that's one of the goals that I've really set out to do, is to really try to reach families and offer them. Don't go and Google your fingers to the bone. There's places you can go. There's stops you can make. And I have a lot of resources. You can check me out on YouTube or wherever. If you go online and find my name somewhere, you'll find my stuff out there. And most of it's out there for free. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I like that you offer these things to families for free. Also, because a lot of times people put a lot of time, effort, energy, money into their family members that need assistance, but don't feel like they can put the money into themselves. And so I like that these resources are accessible.
Yeah, I have a lot of resources that we've put together over the years. We've been at it for over 2 decades, and I've written a lot. I've created a lot of programs. I have a lot of online tutorial stuff, and there's a lot of people that are out there trying to help as well. The saddest part of all of this is that I really see where families are struggling so much that they don't raise their hand and say, I need the help, I want the help. And I don't know why. I think we may have talked about this in another discussion, the three of us, but I don't know, people are just so burnt out with the day-to-day care for their loved one and trying to hold it all together that when they have a down moment, they want to have a glass of wine, eat some chocolate ice cream, and just chill and not think about it. But I'm up there on the top of the mountain banging a gong and screaming and trying to give stuff away. And a lot of people just aren't taking advantage. And that's probably the saddest thing of all. That's probably the saddest statement of all regarding what mental illness does to us.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about the reasons why, because I imagine guilt probably plays into it for some people. Like, my problems aren't as bad as theirs are, or even just struggling to identify it.
Yeah, stigma, embarrassment. It's one of those situations where you're sitting in a room with a group of people and you think you have the dumbest question on the planet, and so you're afraid to ask it. And I say this a lot in a lot of my online stuff, it's ask the question, because when I ask a question, Marissa may be thinking the same thing, but she doesn't even know how to phrase it in a question. Any question that I may have that you answer, Alana, may help to inform Marissa and help to get her answer, her question answered. There's definitely a lot of that behind the closed door kind of just suffering in silence,
And how suffering can become people's normal.
Yes, our new normal, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's one thing that we have to let people know, is that this does not need to be your normal. This does not identify you. It doesn't identify your family, and it doesn't even identify your loved one who is struggling. You're more than that. I hate when people say, "What do you do, Mike?" "Oh, I'm a lawyer." You pigeonhole yourself into these boxes. I'm a parent of a person with mental illness. No, you're much more than that. You're much more than that. You are a rock star on the golf course, which I am not. You are a rock star on the tennis court, that kind of thing. You're much more than just an identifier, right?
Yeah, I remember during this interview, you were talking about HIPAA and kind of how it can create barriers when that was not
Yeah,
the original intention of
right.
HIPAA at all. And you had mentioned that you, in March, you're going to be doing training about HIPAA with the consortium. So, say you are introducing HIPAA to someone who's never heard of it before. Like, what
Yeah.
do you think that the key points you want people to know about it is?
What do I want people to know? Or which there's so many. I mean, yes, HIPAA, we have a log GM system of community. This brings us back to the communication discussion. Communication within any kind of medical system is log jammed, right? HIPAA comes along and it's been around for a long time now. You forget that it's been around for decades and it's changed and it keeps evolving and becoming more and bigger and bigger and bigger. So HIPAA comes along and people misinterpret its meaning to say, hey, I can't talk to you about anything, no matter what. Don't talk to me. I can't even acknowledge that this person is here. You've heard that when I cannot deny nor confirm that this patient is here, blah, blah, blah. I want to impress upon people that are not only consumers, but also providers that they should really learn about the law and what the law really says. Because if you read what the law really says, it is not the hindrance to communication that it is made out to be. It is, in fact, the opposite. Whenever you go to the doctor's office, you signing their HIPAA disclosure statement. It's basically a requirement now. But within that disclosure statement, it talks about, if you read it, it actually says there are many circumstances where we will disclose your information to other people, where we may, I'll actually read it to you. It says, where we may use or disclose some of your health information without first obtaining your written authorization. And that blows people's minds, right? For instance, to report vital information and prevent or control disease or injury. We just saw that all with COVID. If we reasonably believe you are a victim of abuse, neglect, or domestic violence, we may disclose your health conditions. We may make a disclosure in response to a court or administrative subpoena. But more importantly, perhaps, is that when you have a team of people that are working together, the three of us are working together with a mutual client, we have the ability to communicate with each other around the treatment for that individual. HIPAA does not take that away from us. Not only does it not take away from us, but there's certain laws that within HIPAA that say you have to disclose information to the representative of the individual. If the individual comes looking for their file, you have to disclose it to them. And all of this being said, it all fits under the umbrella that HIPAA was designed so that if you were moving from job to job to job, your insurance information would travel with you and you could continue to have basically your insurance following you. But that opened up the door to, well, what can we disclose? What can't we disclose? And then you have IT that comes in and how we communicate now so much electronically. So all these different layers and layers and layers have been put on top of it. But it is not meant to be a barrier to communication. It is specifically meant to, there are provisions within HIPAA that specifically go to how we can use private health information in a productive way, in a clinical way, in treatment, give information to other providers. There's contemplation now about, and it's supposed to be coming out this year, about the inclusion of family member as somebody that can be part of a team. And that's getting back to what we just talked about. That would be a huge benefit. It would be most helpful, because there's nothing more frustrating than what I call people hiding behind HIPAA. I can't talk to you. I won't talk to you. I won't give you this information because HIPAA says I can't. No, that's not what HIPAA says. HIPAA doesn't say that. So obviously you can hear my frustration, and you'll hear more when I do the presentation in the springtime. If you follow the law systematically, you just go through it, it makes sense. It's not the big, overwhelming, burdensome animal that people think it is. It's scary, and it's getting scarier with some of the penalties that they are actually starting to roll out. It's something we all should be aware of. It's something that I blew off for years and years and years. And finally, I got around to really digging into it and now seeing how it does apply to me and how it does apply to you guys and how it does apply to therapists and social workers and case managers. And I said to myself, holy cow, I need to let families know about this. And I need to let therapists and social workers know about this, because they don't. And they need to be aware of it, what it really says and how it really applies to them. Those are the two big things that I'm interested in getting out to the world.
Yeah, that's going to be really valuable information for a lot of people, not only just professionally, but also personally as
Absolutely.
well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's going to be a great training in March. That's going to be really interesting. I'm excited about that because we don't have a lot of trainings like that.
No, and I'm bringing in, a partner of mine in this HIPAA program who is a securities guy, and he will talk about the IT requirements and whatnot. And he's really good at how your computer systems work and what they need to have, simple solutions that can help you become more compliant, and that's what it's really about. Being proactive, trying to get ahead of the HIPAA issues, trying to make sure that you are doing something about it. You're not just blowing it off. That's what the law wants to see. If nothing else from this podcast comes out to you, don't blow it off. Do something. Be proactive that you at least acknowledge HIPAA exists and you are trying to get ahead of it and address it in any way you possibly can. That's key number one. If they come auditing you, they're going to want to see that you're at least doing that. Come up with a policy. And we'll talk more about that when I see you guys again.
HIPAA is so interesting because I feel like when people talk about it, it's almost always misinterpreted. And I'm kind of laughing because I'm thinking about when people were needing proof of vaccination to get into places, and then the other people were rebutting and saying that's a HIPAA violation to ask me if I'm vaccinated, which is completely incorrect.
It is, and we could that opens up a whole sociological, political discussion we can go
right.
down.
I don't want to.
I had a situation once where I had one of our mental health facilities. You had people this side of the building, and you had people on this side of the building. They wouldn't share information with each other because they thought they were afraid of violating HIPAA. And I'm like, you guys got to be kidding me. You need to do some studying. But the problem is, what's the rule I said? It's the golden rule is he who holds the gold makes the rules, right? So I could tell the administrator of that building that they're wrong. Their interpretation of HIPAA is wrong, that this is not correct. But if they have it in their head that this is the way it's going to be, that's the way it's going to be. And nothing I can do to break it down unless I'm going to bring suit and push it and show them that, hey, you're actually violating HIPAA in some ways, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what makes it tough, I think, for families, especially that want to get information, want to help the situation with a loved one. They call up and they're told, no, we can't talk to you. We can't include you because HIPAA precludes us from doing that. Take a better look at it. See if that's actually true, because I don't think that's a carte blanche statement that I don't think we necessarily have to subscribe to anymore. If we're being realistic about coordinated care and coordinated treatment, I don't think that would hold water if you really looked at what the law says.
Well, this was an incredibly informative conversation. I feel like I've learned so much about HIPAA that I didn't even really understand, and also just like care coordination and the progress that you've gone through for the past 25 years or so.
Ish
25-ish.
Yeah, almost.
I appreciate you talking with us today, because I think this was great.
No, I love it. I love talking. I love when people are actually interested and care and have a forum and to be able to talk. So I appreciate you inviting me. And I will, look forward to seeing you guys soon and seeing all my friends there at the consortium.
Absolutely. We appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Links will be in the description to learn more about Michael and his work with Guardian, and keep up with us at the Connecticut Women's Consortium. We'll also link registration for Michael's upcoming training, HIPAA, Understanding and Managing Risk, on March 28th. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
Be kind to yourself.